is there any chance Russell Wilson can be back next year, is two reasons. One, the dead cap implications of moving on from Russ are so drastic that no team has ever done a move like this before, just because of how much it would kill a team. So there's that to keep in mind. And then the second thing, Ian Rappaport, a national guy, one of the guys that Sean was kind of pointing to, a national guy who's farther away from the situation. Sean was discrediting those type of people. But Ian Rappaport, the second biggest national reporter outside of Adam Schefter when it comes to the NFL, put out a very detailed article this past week on Sunday. And one of the things it said was it's not a guarantee at all that Russ is not back next year. In fact, Russ could be back next year if he's their best option at quarterback. And so if Ian Rappaport's putting that out there, we got to talk about it. Is there any chance of that happening?
I think strictly for the money. It's not because of anybody's performance. It's not because of anybody's relationship. It's literally a financial thing. It's funny saying, sometimes they say it's cheaper to keep her. I think this is a situation we might be in right now. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't necessarily think it's the best fit, but if it has implications 3 or 4 years from now to where we're still going to be in a rebuilding phase further down the line, might have to keep her.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it. Like, it's easy to say, like, Stidham looked just as good as Russ, and he's that much cheaper, but the thing is you don't save that much money. Like, if you cut him instead of keeping him, you save no money next year. You save about $6 million the year after that. And then at that point, you would cut him just because of the way the money works. And then you'd pay another $18 million, then $12 million after. So you have like $6 million savings, 18, then 12 after next year. And so it is like a substantial amount of money. I do think that like there's no chance he comes back. Like you've already benched him. Like if he does come back, you're probably making him the backup quarterback. It's a toxic situation. You already have Stidham on the roster. So like you also have to factor in that you're probably not carrying 3 quarterbacks, you wouldn't think. So you're cutting him, and that costs you a few $1 million if you move on. Maybe you just run it back with Russ and Stidham, but that just seems unlikely. I think at this point, like I just don't see a path forward. I just don't see a way. I don't see any world in which Sean Payton says, actually, yeah, Russ, we had it all right with you, and over the course of the next 3 years, we'll give you another $37 million.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see it. The financials are awful, but the Broncos have made this move by benching Russ, of pretty much saying we're willing to take this. And Sean talked about it a little bit yesterday when asked about some of his comments about when he was asked specifically, you said you wanted to spark by benching Russ and bringing Jarrett Stidham back. You wanted to see improvement. And he said the comments last week were a sum total of 15 games. And yet there were some things I was really encouraged about yesterday. Certainly, if we're going to measure it week by week, man, you'd say, man, we scored under 20 points. That wasn't enough. We missed on opportunities in the red zone, but we were safe with the football. Certainly, we look forward to this next game. But that was a stretch. That was a long stretch of 15 weeks where we've seen a very similar pattern. I think that'll change. I made the decision to move with Stidham with the hopes that it's going to help bring change. There's no guarantee that it does, but in the meantime, it's something that I felt was necessary. Sean didn't just point to one thing about Russ. He essentially said it's 15 games of things that weren't going in the right direction. And so I just think I don't think there's any chance that Russell Wilson's back. The cap stuff, they're going to have to get very manipulative about. Todd, they're going to be asking tons of guys, hey, you want to restructure? You want some money up front?
I won't say any names, but I definitely had some friends be approached like, hey, next year. So we'll see what happens.
Can't that turn out to be actually restructures a good thing for players? Because it just typically it means a lot of money up front.
Sometimes.
So like the simple restructure where you just say, like, hey, Court, we owe you $14 million next year. If we just give that all to you as a signing bonus right now and then give you the vet minimum over the course of the year, so it's like $13 million right now, then $1 million in game checks, then they get to split that $13 million over the next like 3 years. Right. Like that one's good for the team. If you're saying, hey,
good for the player too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because in like the simple restructure, they just get the money up front, you get cap relief.
Right.
In the Tim Patrick situation, where you say, Tim, you season-ending injuries, back-to-back years, like we're on the hook for $10 million next year. We just can't pay you that. If you want to come back, we'd love to have you back. We got to reduce that down to like $3 million though, because we just can't trust that you're going to be healthy. That's a very different conversation because that's just a pay cut.
Well, and exactly. And those are two different things,
sure.
which we're definitely, since the Broncos are going to be doing a lot of those this year, we got to make sure that restructure, at least when I say restructure, I'm talking about let's give you a big signing bonus so we can spread that out cap hit wise over the next many years. And then there's just straight pay cuts too.
Yeah. And I feel like we may go down the route of pay cuts more because of how much money we have to pay Russ. Because if we pay him all that money and then just front load everybody's contract, then we're just out more money in the same year. So there have been mentions of pay cuts. I won't say anybody's name, but at the same time, if I'm a player and you're asking me to make a pay cut, okay, if I'm playing with Peyton and I know we're going to the Super Bowl next year, I'll take a pay cut because it's worth it. If we're blowing this whole thing up and we don't know how successful we're going to be next year, I got to keep the money I got because there's no guarantee that I go to another team, make more money, or that we have anything here that makes me successful to earn more money in the next year. I can't restructure or take a pay cut. I kind of got to lock into what I have, in my contract right now.
And that's where the team says, okay, so say it's like $5 million. So we say you're making $5 million. We want to get that down to $3 million. What the math comes down to is like, okay, then cut me. Let me hit free agency because I can go get that $5 million somewhere else. So for the Broncos to be able to go in there with any sort of power, they have to be able to say, you're not going to get this on the open market, and that seems, just from like looking through everything quickly, I'm curious who they could even say that to. When you say like, hey, DJ Jones, for example, we owe you $10 million next year. We don't think you're going to get $10 million on the open market, so you have to accept our pay cut. I think he does just go get $10 million on the open market. And I just don't see a lot of names where you just say, hey, you're not going to get this money anywhere else, so you might as well just take the pay cut.
When what limits it, too, is you can only do this with players that don't have guaranteed money.
For sure.
Anymore,
exactly.
Too. So Tim Patrick's probably the biggest one that you look and you say, after back-to-back season-ending injuries where he hasn't played, the Broncos do have some leverage there. But that's one guy where you're saving $5 million to. And we'll get into all the moves that the Broncos have to make because there's a ton if they move on from him.
And then I guess the final thing they could do is go to a guy like Mike McGlinchey and say, hey, we owe you $15 million next year. Your guaranteed money runs out after next year. We can throw in like a little bit more guaranteed 2025 money and give you a little bit more insurance that you're going to be around and give you that money kind of down the line if you take this pay cut right now. So that's I guess kind of the final thing.
Right.
It's going to be an interesting offseason because Sean really likes that sort of stuff.
Oh, he loves pushing things down the line.
He does.
When it comes to the cap. Just look at the New Orleans Saints. They're in a tough cap situation after Sean left, and so that's why I don't think most coaches would have benched Russ and said, we're just going to move on from him. But Sean is not most coaches. He's going to do it his way, and that's why I think. So let's wrap this conversation up with this question, because Russ also said, I want to stay in Denver. He mentioned that multiple times, and he said, I genuinely mean that. I want to stay in Denver. So maybe the only situation I see Russ coming back is if he were to take a massive pay cut. But Russ is guaranteed $30, $40 million. Guaranteed. If he drops that to $5 million, I see Russ coming back for 1 year, potentially competing with the rookie. Why would Russ pass up on $35 million? He's not going to do that. Even if he wants to be here, he's not going to do that. So the question, what % chance would you say Russ is back next year?
I say, what was the Broncos' chances to make the playoffs before the game? 5%?
Yeah.
I think there's a 5% chance Russ comes back.
Yeah.
And going back to your point about him saying he genuinely wants to be here, he's playing, y'all. Like, there's no way. Your first year was horrible. The second year you get benched. What makes you want to stay in this place? Like, if it's me, I got to get the hell out of here. Like, there got to be better for me somewhere else than this. Like, there's no way he honestly wants to come back. Like, from the drama that's happened this week to all the Media wanting to bench him last year. Like, it's been nothing but trauma since he's been here.
Yeah.
He's had a losing record. It hasn't been successful. That's like on a personal level.
Right.
What would really make you want to be here, man? Like, there's no way.
I mean, since like week 1 of last season, there's probably been like 500 days since then. He's had maybe 15 good days, and just like all 485 just terrible days.
It's Russell Wilson. Every day's good though, Henry. With that positive attitude.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting that game check every week, I guess maybe. Yeah, it's just so hard when he stands there though, and he's like fighting back tears, saying, "I just want to be in Denver. Like, I love Denver. I love my teammates. I love these guys so badly. Like, we have a house here. I want to be here. I want to win." Like,
I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
Just like you didn't buy
You're
Sean,
right.
I'm not buying
You are
that,
right.
man.
You are
There's
right.
No way.
Yeah, I'll say. I mean, I guess you can't say it's impossible. So like 1%, less than 1%. I guess there's technically a chance, but he's not.
So what are you going
with? Call it 1%. Easier to put on a graphic.
I'm going 0.1% chance
Yeah,
because I think the
that's
only
fair.
way he's here is if he takes a massive pay cut, not restructure, pay cut.
Yes.
And again, why would you do that?
No
if
reason.
you sign a contract that says you are going to get $40 million, and the only way that you're not going to get that is if you sign another contract saying I'm not going to get that, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Especially with how bad things have gone. You don't want to be here again.
No.
You want to be paid to leave, and then you can go sign to be a starter somewhere else, and that team's going to pay you a vet minimum, but you're getting paid by the Broncos anyway. So it's kind of like a perfect world for both him and his new team. So I don't see it happening. And I think we're going to see a couple more articles and a couple more reports come out nationally over the next 2 months saying maybe there's a chance, maybe there's something in place just for the Broncos to have leverage, try to have leverage over this situation. But there's no leverage. When you sign an awful deal, you just kind of have to eat that and then move on.
It's funny because if they cut him and truly cut him and they're going to have to pay him his money, I bet you he makes more than vet minimum next year. I bet he gets at least a Jared Stidham kind of
See,
thing.
but the thing is, so the way the contract works, it's offset. So like the Broncos, let me double check. So he has a guaranteed $17 million salary next year. So Broncos give him that 17. If a new team gives him $5 million,
Then they only give
that
him
goes
12.
down to 12.
Okay.
And so that's why he's going to go to a new team.
So then,
And the Broncos are going to pay and so it just makes sense. So like he can just take the same amount of money. He can take basically the same contract and just go play for Mike Tomlin, who loves this style of football. He isn't the Sean Payton like, yeah, we're going to scheme all these guys up 15 yards downfield and we're just going to go and go and go. It's like, no, we're going to play great defense for 60 minutes, 58 minutes. We're going to be down 13-7. Russ, that's your time to shine. And that's where he shines. Like,
So
it's
the only reason that Russ would get more than the vet min is if he were to get more than 17 million from a team.
If there's like a bidding war.
Right, because then so what's going to happen is Russ is going to get cut. He's going to sign for a 1-year vet minimum deal with the team as a prove-it year for him, kind of. And then if he does well, then he'll probably go out. He's not signing a 5-year $250, but he'll sign a 2-year $100 million deal or something like that with the team.
I don't like those little caveats.
It's
to
so
those
bad.
deals.
It's so bad.
Because the way I thought and the way I thought my agent was telling me is that my final year of my deal, I had $500,000 that the Broncos were going to give me or pay me if they cut me. And so they cut me, and so I called my agent like, "Where's the check?" And they was like, "Oh no, it was like they guaranteed that you would make $500,000 in this year. So the moment I went to the Vikings and made more, they didn't have to give me anything. I was like, I was just sat at home and collected a check. Like, I got my body right. Maybe wait till next year.
Exactly.
I don't like that.
Oh, that is sad. Especially if you don't know. That's terrible.
Right. I don't like
That's
that.
how like all those college coach contracts work too. So like if you get so many coaches that are fired, but the whole contract is generally guaranteed. And so they have the offset language too. But then there's another clause, and that other clause is you have to try to find a job. So like you can't just sit at home. And so all these coaches will be like, hey, I'm gonna go like take these 2 interviews. I'm gonna half-ass it, and then I'm gonna go sit at home. So at least like if it goes to court, I can say, oh, I tried. Like, look, I took this flight, I interviewed, I brought my papers with me, but I mean, tried to get a job.
Yeah.
Or it's like if you're fired at Western Kentucky or something like
Yeah.
that. Well, you apply for the Alabama head coaching job. You're not going to
Exactly.
get it, but
Exactly.
you tried to get a job
Exactly.
there. So you go way above. And Todd, because you brought up your situation, someone in the comments earlier said, Todd, have you ever restructured or taken a pay cut?
No, I don't. I don't have that in me.
Nope.
I need my money.
Yeah, exactly. And like it'd be different. I mean, obviously, like you did well, like second contract, all that sort of stuff. You'd never signed 5 years, $242 million.
And I feel like I worked too hard to get there.
Exactly,
Like I
yeah.
played on my rookie deal for 2 years as a starter before I ever got another
Yes.
paycheck. So now that I finally am getting good money, no. We're not
Exactly.
restructuring anything.
Exactly.
You're
Exactly.
paying me that damn money.
I got some back pay. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
100%. And that's why when teams cut players, it's more often than not when their guaranteed money is done. That's
Yep.
why when a deal, if you look at a deal, and it's 5 years, $250 million with 160 guaranteed. Okay, it's really a 3-year deal because
Exactly.
likely that 160 million will be in the first 3 years of the deal.
Yep.
It's a 3-year, $160 million deal. Rarely, and Kirk Cousins was the only quarterback I think that's at least signed a big deal where it's fully guaranteed.
Yep.
But his deal wasn't 5 years, $250 million. It was 3 years, $100 million. So he could have essentially signed a 5-year, $160 million deal,
Yep.
and it would have been the exact same as the 3-year, $100 million deal.
Yep, definitely.
So we're going to talk a lot about money moving forward because this offseason, it's going to be like no other team in the history of the NFL in terms of the number of deals this Broncos team is going to have to make to deal with Russell Wilson's contract.
Yeah, that's to me. It's like, so they said last year like this isn't going to be an every year thing, spending this much money on free agents and all that stuff. This year,
Who said that?
was it Sean
they?
saying that
Who's
the
they?
owners said that we're not doing this?
No, it
Or
was
what,
Greg
the
Penner
owners-
himself.
did the owners say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Greg Penner, the one writing the check, said, we're not spending $250 million every offseason. Just so
Exactly.
you know, Sean.
And so that,
Exactly.
it kind of makes sense because you're going to cut Russ this year, probably 99% chance, and you're not like spending real money. You're just taking cap hits. Like you're spending cap money to get rid of Russ this year. And so you're not really going to have the opportunity to go out and sign free agents anyway. You're just going to wind up with like Pat gets a new deal, Quinn gets a new deal, and that's kind of the spending.
Yep.
Do you ever feel like the ownership feels like, why the hell did we do this?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
or do
wonder.
they feel like they've made a good investment and like they're just waiting to see it come to fruition? Or is it just like, who signed us up for this? Like, we have done nothing but pour money into this and it hasn't worked out. And we're going to have to do it again this offseason.
Would you believe 16-ish months ago, they spent $4.5 billion in cash of their own money to buy this team. They think it's going to be probably the coolest thing in the
Yep.
world. And then they had one of the most embarrassing seasons
Yep.
of all time. Had to fire the coach they inherited within just a couple of months. Then they go out and they make this $100 million signing in Sean Payton, who's
Yep.
supposed to be this great thing. And then you lose by 50 points in week 3. You start 1-5. And now you're going to be moving on from the quarterback that you thought you were inheriting as like this awesome piece moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe owning a team isn't as fun as it seems.
Yeah.
That sounds stressful right now.
I will say, if I was in their shoes, though, like you have to remember, like they have plenty of billions of dollars. Like,
But you never want to
no,
lose.
you never want to. You never want to. But I'm sure they're frustrated. But to me, this would be kind of like a game. Like, I mean, it is a literal game. Like, it's football. And to me, it'd be like, okay, we got to find a way to go do this. And I'm sure there's, like, times when you're just like, how the hell are we ever going to do this? Like, it's going to be another 2-3 years before we get out of, like, the paying Russell era. And that really sucks. But when that's out, like, we got to find a way. It's almost like a video game at that point. And, like, last year, despite all the contracts and stuff, Forbes estimated the Broncos brought in, like, $100 million profit. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're still, like, making money. Could you have, like, invested that money somewhere else and gotten a bigger profit? I don't know because I don't think about where you spend your billions of dollars. I will say, like, it's probably frustrating. It's probably disappointing, like, the highs and lows and all that. But it would also be just, like, a lot of fun to be like, okay, we're going and getting Sean Payton. We're going to find, like, a rookie. Like, we are winning a Super Bowl here before I die. And that's kind of like how you live out the rest of your life.
I think you're right about that. I just think they probably thought it was going to be a lot more fun in his
Probably.
first year.
For sure.
Easier.
Because of Russ.
Yep.
Like,
Definitely.
you have a franchise quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And then it just hasn't been